Hello there, everybody. Have you ever sat in the back of one of these airplanes and maybe wondered, what are the pilots doing up front? Or how do they get these big engines to start? Or maybe if you're wondering what takes them so long to get from the ramp to, well, actually taxiing. Well, I can go and show you. Let's go to the cockpit and have a look around. Now, notice everything here is turned off. There's no power running whatsoever, so let's change that. Let's grab our checklist and do as it tells us. So, parking brake is set. By the way, this is the pre-flight and aft overhead checklist. Battery switch is on. And we have 26 volts on the battery, and which is over our minimum of 22, so we can continue. AC voltmeter selector is on ground power. Electric hydraulic pumps 1 and 2 are off. Standby power disconnects 1 and 2 are guarded. Standby power is on automatic and guarded. Bus transfer is on automatic and guarded. And okay, now we're going to connect the ground power. So ground power is now on bus. Landing gear lever is down. We have 3 green lights indicating that the gear is down and locked. Engine APU fire warning system and extinguishers test. We'll move this switch to the right, and we have engine 1 overheat, engine 2 overheat, wheel well fire, engine 1 fire, engine 2 fire, and APU fire. We have the fire bell, fire warning, and bell cutout. We'll return the switch back to center, and we'll do a cargo fire test. So again, we have a bell, forward and aft fire warning, discharge warning or caution, and a fire warning and bell cutout, and we'll depress the switch. Okay, position lights are on. Engine bleed switches 1 and 2 are off. APU bleed switch is off. Left forward fuel pump is on. APU. We're going to go ahead and start the APU. Now the APU is the auxiliary power unit, and we need this unit to start the engines because, believe it or not, the engines on an aircraft, well, with these jets, they don't start using a electric motor. They actually start using air pressure coming from the auxiliary power unit. See, this power unit provides auxiliary power just in case we lose all power to the aircraft, and it also provides air to the aircraft. So we use this unit to start the engines, and it sends air to the inner core or the inner turbines in the engines and spins them, and once they reach a certain RPM or a certain percentage, the pilot will engage the fuel to the engines, and once combustion happens, then the forward fans and inner fans begin to spin on their own. They do not need the help of the APU anymore. So we just need the APU for engine start. So APU is ready to go online, EGT stable. So APU is now on bus. AC voltmeter selector is on APU generator, and we have 115 amps or volts on the generator, coming from the generator. APU bleed switch is on, and notice the duct pressure begins to rise since we have now connected the GPU APU. They sound so similar. Okay. Alright, the APU is now running. We got the APU bleed switch is on. LE devices. Push this test button and we have all the lights come on. So test is good. IRS display test. We have the indications come on down here, so we can continue with programming the IRS. And basically what the IRS is it provides us our navigation information. And you'll notice, if I close that, down here we have our main screens. Well, they're not all aligned correctly. We don't have any indications on them, so we need to change that. Let's go to the FMC, and we need to put in our location. So our location is Kilo Charlie Sierra Golf, the Columbus Metropolitan Airport. It knows our latitude and longitude, so we'll copy that, transfer it to the IRS position, and if we look back up at the unit, notice that we have a line on left and right. Usually this process for alignment would take about 20 minutes, but I have it sped up in order to save time. So the IRS is now aligned, and we have our displays. Okay, so IRS is aligned. Now we can test the oxygen masks. The captain's oxygen mask has flow and oxygen. The right has oxygen. The passenger oxygen switch is guarded, so which means it's on normal, and the passenger oxygen light is turned off. Alright, we're going to do a Mach airspeed warning test and a stall warning test. So we're going to open up that overhead panel again, and before the aircraft, well actually when the aircraft enters over speed range, you'll hear this. So we'll test both units. And before the aircraft enters a stall, each control column has what's called a stick shaker attached to it, or this unit here. And basically what it does is it vibrates the control column whenever the aircraft is about to enter a stall. So we know both those units work. Equipment, cooling, supply, and exhaust switches are on normal. Recirculation fans left and right are on auto. Now we'll set up the air conditioning panel. The isolation valve is on auto, left pack is on auto, right pack is on auto. Okay, emergency exit lights armed. Seatbelt sign is on, flap lever is up, and we verify that the position needle indicates the flaps are up. Okay, so pre-flight and after overhead checklist is complete. Now we need to do the overhead preparation checklist. Alright, and it should be pretty fast. This one is just making sure that indications are correct. Standby hydraulic low quantity, low pressure indicators are off. Flight control switches A and B are guarded. Alternate flap switch is guarded. Alternate flap control switch is off. Spoiler switches A and B are guarded. Yaw damper is on. VHF nav and IRS are both on normal. FMC is normal. Navigation display source is on auto. Navigation display control panel is on normal. Now we're going to test the fuel crossfeed valve, and basically this links both left and right tanks together. So we're going to open the valve. We have a bright valve open, meaning the valve is in transit. Dim valve open, meaning the valve is open. Bright again, the valve is in transit. And off, the valve is closed. So fuel valve is okay. Fuel pumps, we have the forward left turned on. DC voltmeter, we're going to turn it to T1 or TR1, TR2, TR3, and back to battery. Cab and util is on. IFE and pass is on. Equipment, cooling, supply, and exhaust switches, we're going to go ahead and check that again, is on normal. Emergency exit lights are armed. Fasten seatbelt sign is on. Window wipers are not required. Window heat, we're going to go ahead and test the overheat and power, and it's good, so we're going to go ahead and turn on the window heat. Probe heat is on. Wing anti-ice is off. Engine anti-ice is off. Electric hydraulic pumps 1 and 2 are off. Engine hydraulic pumps 1 and 2 are on. Cockpit voice recorder, we'll hold the button down until we get that red light indicating that the voice recorder checks out okay. Engine start switches are off, and ignition selector switch is on left ignition, or ignition left. Air conditioning panel is set. Trim air is on. Air conditioning selectors, all three knobs are on auto. Recirculation fans left and right are on auto. Wing and body overheat test, both are good. Packs left and right are on auto. Isolation valve is open. Bleeds on the left engine and right engine are on. APU bleeds are on. We have a dual bleed indication on the air conditioning unit. Pressurization panel, we're going to ensure that we have 12,000 set for our cruise altitude. Our airport, our current, well, sort of our current airport elevation is 400. We round to the nearest, so it's on 400. I believe airport elevation is 350 something around that, 370, something like that. So we round to 400. The pressurization is set to automatic, and exterior lights, logo light is on, anti-collision light is on. Overhead preparation checklist is complete. Okay, we're almost to the engine start. 2 more checklists to go. Forward panel and pedestal. And this one's going to be pretty simple to do, so we need to set up our autopilot. Flight director is on, pilot is main. Speed, we're going to have 200 knots for our initial climb out, and heading is going to be somewhere around there. Altitude will be 12,000, and now we program our flight management computer or flight management system. All depends on who you were taught by. Okay, so now we go to our payload. Let's set a random weight, and that looks good. Let's go to route. We need to put in from Columbus to KATL, or the Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport. Flight number is 607. Runway for departure is runway 6. Our arrival will be the ILS into runway 09 right. Transition over Vinny. Route activate execute. Legs will connect Vinny to our route execute. Initial reference. Our weight is 151.2. We have 10 reserves. Cost index is 30. Flight level 120, or 12,000 feet. And execute. RTE takeoff. Flaps will be 10 for departure. Our CG is 20.5. And we have our takeoff information of 139. For V1, VR is 140, and V2 is 149. V1, it indicates our speed at which we can still stop the aircraft. After V1, then we're committed to the departure. VR is rotation speeds. V2 is the minimum safe speed at which we can operate with still one engine running. So those are our reference speeds set in, and the FMC is completely set up for our flight, and we're going to go ahead and verify that our route looks correct, which it does. We're departing out of Columbus. We'll make a left turn for Vinny, which is the beginning of the approach into runway 09 right to Atlanta, and once we hit Vinny, we're going to go ahead and do that right turn towards the runway. So the navigation equipment are set up, and now we're going to check that the altimeter is set to airport elevation. Standby gauges are set and checked. Auto brake is on RTO, or rejected takeoff. Parking brake is set. Verify that again. Yes, is set. Speed brake lever is down. This is the speed brake lever, so it's down. Thrust levers are idle. Reverse levers, basically what the reverse is this lever here, the one going up and down. And basically what that does is it repositions this cowling right here to reverse the flow of air from going this way to this way. It redirects the air. So that's the thrust reverse. flaps are up. Engine start levers on cutoff. Stabilizer trim. I'm going to go ahead and trim the aircraft out. And what do we trim it out to? Let's see if I can see it. 5.58, so that's around there. Alright, so the aircraft is trimmed. Takeoff warning horn. We tested it, and comm and nav radios, we're not going to set the communication and navigation radios, so we can skip that. The audio panel is set. Rudder and aileron trim is 0. We're gonna test the transponder, the TCAS. So we press the button and wait for the TCAS test. OK. Pre-departure briefing. Let's say it's complete. Okay, so it passed. Forward panel and pedestal checklist complete. Alright. Before pushback checklist. Fuel pump switches. Now we're going to turn all the fuel pumps on. Fuel pumps are on. APU generator switch. I'm going to verify it. Both of them are on. Seatbelt sign is on. Hydraulic A pump is off. Hydraulic B pump is on. Flight deck door is locked. See here, that unlocks the door, that denies entry. So the door is locked. Windows are locked. And ground equipment, we're going to disconnect the GPU. Menu, FS actions. We remove the wheel chocks and remove the GPU unit. Let's return to takeoff. And before pushback checklist is complete. Alright, so now we're going to begin our pushback. There's our pushback vehicle over there about to hook up to us. Let's go ahead and start the engines. Pack switches. Now notice, if you ever have been in an aircraft as large as this one before, they turn off the air conditioning before they start the engines, and that is to ensure that we have as much pressure as we can going to the engines for startup. Okay. Isolation valve is open. And he's pushing us back now. Okay. We're now going to select the right engine to ground start. Okay. Right engine on ground start. We're going to watch N2 percentage, which is the core turbine. This registers their RPM percentage. So we're at 20. We can go ahead and give the engine some fuel. And we can verify that we have ignition by EGT rising, or the temperature of the engine. So that's rising. N1 is rising. And the engine seems to be starting up correctly. We basically wanted to watch the temperatures here to make sure they didn't go into an unsafe range. And if they would have, then you just abort the engine start. And we'll end the pushback right here. It helps if we turn off the brakes. That's why you have 2 people in the aircraft, to ensure that you have one guy checking the systems and making sure you're not goofing up like I just did. That's fine. We left half the tires on the terminal. It's okay. We can still depart on rims. So the right engine is now started. We're going to turn the right engine to continuous ignition, meaning that if the engine were to have shut down, it will continue to try to relight itself. So we'll have some thrust coming from that engine, or a complete relight of the engine. Now we're going to go ahead and start the left engine. So left on ground start. And we have a rise in N2. And again, we're going to wait for it to reach 20%. And now we give it fuel. We have ignition. EGT is rising. And by the way, this is N1. This is our outer turbine. So N1 registers the RPM percentage of the outer turbine. Alright, so both of those engines are started. Let's go back in here, change this to continuous ignition. And now we can turn on our hydraulics. We can turn off the auxiliary power unit after, of course, we do that. Make sure we still have our route. Okay. Alright, so let's see. Left and right packs are on. Get the air conditioning running. And yaw damper. Flaps. 5 and 10. Flap set for departure. And we are ready to go. Let's do our checklist here just to make sure. After engine start, engine generator switches 1 and 2 are on. Hydraulic pump A is on. Electric hydraulic pumps are on. AC voltmeter selector is going to monitor generator 1. APU bleed switch is on. APU is off. Probe heat is on. Master caution, we'll go ahead and do a recall. Okay, and no cautions. Engine and wing anti-ice is off. Packs left and right are on automatic. Isolation valve is on automatic. It's on automatic now. Hydraulic system check and taxi clearance. We have our clearance to taxi. So I'll see you all on the runway, and we'll go ahead and do a departure, and we'll end it there. So we'll see you on the runway. Alright, so now we're ready to go. Final is clear. Runway is clear. Go ahead and turn on our landing light and taxi light. Brakes. We don't want to use up too much runway because in aviation there's nothing more useless than a runway behind you. And this is a pretty short runway for this aircraft. So we're ready to depart. What we're going to do is I'm going to hold the brakes, bring the aircraft up to 70% N1, release the brakes and full power. Airspeed's rising. .80 knots and checked.
V1. V1 take.
Rotate.
V2.
And we verify that we have a positive rate of climb, which we do. So gear up. And flaps to 5. Auto throttle is armed. Lateral navigation is armed. Altitude hold, vertical speed, and command alpha is on. Now I have the autopilot on. Autopilot is automatically flying us up to an altitude of 12,000, following the lateral navigation or the course that we have set in our FMC or FMS. This is TCAS, traffic collision avoidance system. Airspeed, we're going to go ahead and let's bring it all the way up to 230 for our airspeed. Turn that off. And we need to get past the 1 mark here to bring the flaps up to 1. And flaps 1. Flaps up. Move the gear lever to the off position. Flaps up, no light. And after takeoff, positive rate, gear up, flaps retracted, autopilot is set and engaged. Air conditioning and pressurization is set. After takeoff is checklist is complete. Climb, auto brakes off. The engine start switches are on continuous, and at 10,000 feet we're R2. Switch the landing lights to off. Seatbelt signs will be turned off, and upon passing transition altitude, set altimeters to 2992, and transition altitude being 18,000. So there you have it. That was the engine start and departure. So I hope I answered your questions. If you've ever been confused sitting in the back seat wondering what they're doing up here, well, I hope that shed a little light as to what they're doing. So I hope you guys stay tuned for my next videos. Thanks for watching. Make sure you rate, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you in the next video.